Alright, what is up everybody? So I am pretty excited to bring this build. It's been a lot of fun. So Mark for Death just got some buffs, some questions of how useful that would be. And yeah, so an unlikely candidate for this build. I've been messing around with Mark for Death on Trinity. And as you can see, I'm doing Steel Path. This is Ophelia. Actually pretty smooth sailing with Marked for Death Trinity. Not a build I thought I'd be playing much, or would exist at all, actually. So I'm just going to kind of show some gameplay here real quick, and then we'll get into the build. I'm trying to find enemies. This build actually kills stuff pretty quickly, so just trying to find some enemies here. Here we go. Ooh, and they're dead. And boop, and they're dead. So yeah, there's a Mark for Death build. Yeah. Um, I really like making damage builds on Trinity for some weird reason, and this has been really crazy effective. I was super surprised. So give it a shot. Can go over the build in a second. It does have some interesting synergies. It does require some, well, it doesn't require. So there's certain things that make the build much easier to play that not everybody might have. So, and I'll go over all that, but I'll try and give some options of, what you can swap out to make the build a little easier. In terms of playing. Sorry, I almost died there. I had to concentrate for a second. But yeah, so this is Mark for Death Trinity. Does pretty well on Steel Path. There's a couple places this build is super good. One, I think it just in general it's pretty good for Steel Path. And then two, it's extremely nice for the index. So, and I'll go over why. Yeah, very good for the index. But all right, I'll do one more pack here. One more pack. Oh, all right. I honestly killing stuff pretty fast. So yeah, that's Marked for Death Trinity. Another kind of unexpected Helminth interaction. Actually very fun to play in my opinion. I think it's actually been a little more fun than some of the other Marked for Death variants. And it's a Marked for Death build that doesn't rely on rapiers or Banshee. So plus I just love Trinity. Trinity's such a cool frame. Rubico doesn't matter here. This is just from when I run Eidolons. So Trinity is just gorgeous. It's always nice to play Trinity. Love her deluxe skin. So yeah, let's get right into it though. So the three primary components here. Don't really have to pay attention to the melee or the primary, but the Kuva Nuke core is relatively important here. I will give it another option if you don't have a Kuva Nuke core, something that is potentially easier to get. Vazarin I found to be extremely nice. So in Vazarin, you have Protective Dash. So this build will kill stuff, right? It does true damage, so you're going to kill things. The biggest obstacle is staying alive. I found even with running a ton of shield gating stuff, you could still die with this build while you were trying to set up your combo. So maxed out Protective Dash really gives you that time to set up your Mark for Death combo without dying. And so, I also run Rolling Guard, and so the build is actually like pretty safe. Now I know not everybody has Vazarin, but you can kind of ignore all this other stuff. Really, all you would need is 0 points in this, and then even just 1 point in Protective Dash would be huge. I think it's nicer when it's maxed out, obviously, but that definitely makes the build a lot easier to play. You don't need that. I will stress you do not need that. Now let's look at the weapons really quick, because viral damage is a really important part of this build. So I have a special Trinity setup here for my Nuke. So I'm running all status, chance, and only viral. You can see I'm even running Karna's Stinger. I'm getting no damage benefit out of this. I just wanted the 60% status chance. Now the Kuva Nuke and the other weapon I'm going to be talking about is the Gaze. Those both have base radiation damage, which actually isn't too bad of a status to apply. They're also both beam weapons, and so multi-shot isn't going to help you apply more status effects, but fire rate will be very effective at applying more status effects. So you want to have mostly viral, no other elements, as much status as you can get on here. Punch through on the Nuke is actually very, very nice. It makes it chain a lot more. And so you can see my Riven is like, it's not really a damage Riven. You could just replace this. You could just only run Seeker and then put something else here, like an Augur mod. You could run Augur Seeker, get the set bonus, you get a little status duration. So yeah, you do not need a Riven at all for this build. The other weapon that you can run is Gaze, and once again have kind of a special Trinity setup here. Now, so this has status chance on it, but once again, honestly, I should probably just drop this Riven because this almost makes it do too much damage. So I really actually need to get rid of this, but definitely don't need a Riven on this either. So why run the Gaze? So ideally you always want to run the Nuke except in the Index, because the Nuke, especially with anemic agility, does use quite a bit of ammo, and it's very easy to run out of ammo in the Index. And so Pack's Charge, which makes your kit gun have a battery, makes this an awesome weapon to pair up with Trinity for the Index. And because of shield gating, you really, really are pretty safe in the Index, and you can reliably one-shot pretty much anything. Marked for Death doesn't really come into the Index too much, because there's not as much AoE. So Trinity received a buff, I think it was a couple patches ago now, where they buffed the base damage of her Energy Vampire. Now I'm sure you can find a million other YouTube videos about this. Like I said, I'm kind of weird, and I always try to make damage builds with Trinity from Link, but Link got nerfed a long time ago, and so I was mostly running just pretty tanky Trinity builds, focusing on melee. But then Energy Vampire got this interesting buff, and so you can see that that there's a damage component to Energy Vampire, where it does 25% base true damage to the enemy. So that can be increased with power strength. Now you would need 400% power strength to reliably one-shot enemies with this ability. Now it's also very important that this is their current HP. This doesn't scale off their max HP. So it's pretty... Now, it's hard to get to 400% energy. It's definitely possible. Through some means like, Pack's Charge or Nidus or Spectres or whatever. Not really super reliable. But if we go to, I'm just going to go back to a weapon really fast to look at this. If we look at viral status increases health damage taken by up to 325%. True damage only damages health. It ignores all defensives. And so you can amp up the damage on this with viral. And so these stats I found to be like a nice sweet spot of you can still one-shot them with enough stacks of viral. I think for my testing, you do need like 8 or 9, maybe 10. You need like, almost maxed out viral to one-shot them with this build, but I wanted to run more range to be able to use Marked for Death. You don't really care about efficiency too much because you're, constantly using Energy Vampire. Energy is not an issue. You want your duration to be very low so your Energy Vampire happens really fast. So you kind of burst the enemies down. Now this is a build that I've run before. Like I said, I use this in the index, but now you can actually use it in normal missions with Marked for Death. So they recently buffed Marked for Death, where you can scale up the damage that Marked for Death will do from 75% up to a new cap of 150%. So the combo that I was doing on Ophelia on that Grenier map there, I would apply Viral with my secondary, and then I would hit them with Marked for Death and then Energy Vampire. And that first tick of damage of Energy Vampire is getting amped up by my Viral, it's getting amped up by all my strength, and then all that damage is getting distributed as true damage in an AoE. And so with just overextended, you can get it to almost 20 meters explosion range. I messed around with some more strength, like dropping Vampire Leech and stuff like that. I didn't really feel like more range was really necessary because they do have to be in line of sight. So because they have to be in line of sight, adding more range didn't really have a huge effect. So now I'm running Aegis and Barrier. So if you run Vazarin, you do not need these. They're nice to have, and you might as well put these in because you can definitely do enough damage just from this combo. Really, what you then need to worry about is staying alive. And so to help staying alive, I have Rolling Guard, I have Vampire Leech, I have Aegis, Barrier. I'm also running Worm Prime with Negate, because one thing that I find somewhat annoying when you get farther into Steel Path missions, um, there's been many times where I die to a random heat proc or slash proc, because what happens is your shield gating procs, and before you can get your shields back up, even if you get out of line of sight of enemies, the dot ticks and it kills you. So I've started running, trying to include more status clear on my builds, whether that's, Worm is a nice option just because it's like, passive, don't have to worry about it too much. Rolling Guard is obviously amazing, and that's where Vazarin also comes in handy as well. So these are very expensive arcanes, so I would suggest if you don't have these arcanes, I would definitely just run Vazarin, and then you can still utilize shield gating through Vampire Leech. So once I switched to Vazarin, I really had no trouble surviving with this build. And it's and Rolling Guard is really great. So it does take a little bit of farming. This build does use quite a few corrupted mods. It also uses Augur Secrets. So instead of Augur Secrets, you could Forma this more and run Umbral Intensify to get a little more strength. So that's another option. Yeah, or you could drop Overextended and just run Stretch, run something else here, like, well, if you don't have Prime Surefooted, you can't run that, but you can run Adaptation, some other defensive thing. You could even throw Redirection in there. That'd probably be fine. So if you drop Overextended, it really lessens the strength requirements on the build, because Augur Secrets is probably the most expensive mod on this whole build. I know that this is a pain to farm. So, if you don't have Augur Secrets, because this build does have kind of a strict requirement, you do need to reach a certain strength threshold to be able to one-shot enemies with 10 stacks of Viral. So you really can't go much lower strength than this, unfortunately. But what you can do is drop Overextended and run just Stretch, and then that'll really, really lessen the requirements on energy or on strength. So you could drop this and run Stretch, Augur Reach, and that'll give you to 175, and so that's not too bad. But I just found this worked a little better for me if you have these mods available. Steel Charge just here for the mod capacity because I haven't formatted this again. And I also run other builds on Trinity as well. So yeah, this build was really, really fun. I can go just show it really quickly in the simulacrum. just to give an idea, one more kind of showcase of how it works. Yeah, I did show it in Steel Path already. So this is definitely a build where it looks, so the reason I wanted to show it off right away in Steel Path is because it plays way differently in Steel Path than in the Simulacrum. And that's something I don't think people really highlight enough with builds, is showing things in the Simulacrum is just, it's just not an accurate representation of the real game. And so I think it's really important to show builds in like a real environment. So here, I'm gonna apply 10 stacks of viral, mark for death, and they're all dead. So yeah, Trinity can nuke now, and that's pretty cool. I love Trinity. She's super awesome. This build also can totally be used to like help support teammates too. Like your blessing will full heal everybody. It has good range. You're going to be restoring energy in a big range. You could probably even run this in like ESO if you wanted to. So yeah, give it a shot. Trinity is a really cool frame. I think this build is super fun. And unfortunately, I don't think there's too many ways to modify it or experiment with it. It does have several pretty hard requirements for it to function, but you can of course mess around with things, suit your playstyle a little better. But yeah, try it out. Let me know how it goes. Nuke Trinity is real. Hope you all have a good day.